The light of wisdom exceeds all measures, and every finite living being receives this illumination that is like the dawn. So take refuge in Amida, the true and real light. Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namo Amida. Good morning, everybody. Good turnout. It was not, I don't know what I was expecting the week before the Christmas break, but thank you everyone for coming today. The passage that I just read, some of you may recognize it. It's one of the wasan, or the hymns, written by the founder of our tradition, Shinran Shonin. I picked this for a couple reasons, which should be clear, but one reason is that this wasan is one of the 6 that we chant after we chant the Shoshinge. We chanted Shoshinge a few weeks ago. It's a pretty long piece. It's a summation of the teachings of Jodo Shinshu, all in one chanted piece. And on January 5th, which is our New Year's party, we're going to do the Shoshinge and the wasan that go after it. And I'm very much looking forward to that because I think it's really beautiful. Right? So if you haven't had a chance to chant with us the wasan, that's coming up in 2 weeks. So in preparation for that, Lin Ray and I were practicing with Sensei this week because there's part of the wasan, right, the last, or the first line of each wasan, someone up here takes turns leading it. So we'll practice that. And so what I read today is one of the ones I have to lead. So it got me thinking because of, in particular, the imagery of light. I was at a solstice party yesterday, which is also about darkness and light. And it got me reflecting on this tradition and this time of year for all of us, and light and darkness. So that's the theme. So yesterday was the solstice, and we are in the middle of the big dark, right? Hopefully you've all heard this term. It's here in the Pacific Northwest, right? We experience not only the darkness of the shortening days, but also the darkness of our beautiful clouds, which in the changing climate of this world, we're fortunate to still have our beautiful clouds. So we have the big dark. Yesterday, it was 8 hours, 28 minutes, and 29 seconds of daylight. But it felt like a lot less, right, because of the darkness. Today, you'll be happy to know it's 5 seconds longer. So we're slowly just really inching out of it. And as you know, it will accelerate, and the lengthening of days will speed up as we hit spring Ohigan, which we celebrate here at the temple. So I'm reflecting on light in darkness and the power of light. And as I think in many traditions around the world, in the Northern Hemisphere, the solstice in this time of the year is a time for putting out lights, right? Be those Christmas lights, be those the candles of a menorah, the lights of Diwali, or many other traditions. We put out lights to remind ourselves, to keep ourselves kind of cozy and warm in the gloom of the darkness. So I'm definitely feeling that myself. I don't know if you have extra lights up, but we have our lights up, and some of them are just on all day long this time of year. So today I'm going to reflect a little bit about the importance of light in Buddhism and in Jodo Shinshu in particular, and then reflect a little bit on what this can mean for us as we pursue a spiritual life, how we can reflect on light as part of that, as kind of a reminder of things. So the tradition of Buddhism started in South Asia, as everybody knows, and light is a very powerful religious image in India and South Asian religions. It's connected to ideas of the divine, of true reality. It's associated with wisdom and awakening. And this idea of light as wisdom as light, right? It's powerful because light on its own, it isn't doing things, but it can make everything happen, right? You walk into a dark room. This is often discussed in a variety of traditions coming out of South Asia, the power of light. You walk into a dark room and you turn on a light, or if you bring a lamp with you, the illumination is instant, right? It happens instantly. And it lets you perceive the space, right? For those of us with sight, Not everybody has vision, but for those who do, right, light makes all this possible. Like wisdom makes things possible. It makes it possible for us to see our own lives. We go through our days kind of going on habit, right? Going through the motions of our lives in our habitual ways. But sometimes we get a glimpse, right? Sometimes we stop, we slow down for a second. Maybe we say the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. We just remember where we are, and we see things clearly for just a moment. Right? That's the power of wisdom, this idea of light. On Buddhist altars, traditionally there's 5 offerings that are given on an altar. We don't do all 5 here in the Jodo Shinshu tradition at our temple, but one of them that you always see is light. Right, so we have candles, and I apologize, we're struggling with 2 of our candles. I think there's something symbolic about this, actually. We're struggling with 2 of our candles, including the one in front of Shinran Shonin, our founder. So I'm a little embarrassed. We've been working on them all morning with wax, trying to get them to light in this season of darkness. And I still have hope, which is where it comes from, right? So ideally, we have 5 candles and other lights. And in Buddhism, the candle represents wisdom. So when you go to Buddhist temples throughout the world, or your altar if you have a shrine at home, the light, a candle or an electric candle, or even a small dish with oil or butter with a wick in it, all of those lamps, they symbolize the light of wisdom. Walking the path of Buddhism helps us grow in our wisdom, our ability to see clearly the rooms that we find ourselves in our lives. And it works instantly. And the candles also go out. So this is really important in our tradition of Jodo Shinshu. So this is a Jodo Shinshu temple. If we have any visitors here today, our central image of veneration, our central kind of teaching image is Amida Buddha, which is right in they're right in the center. And you can even see Amida has rays of light coming out. The name Amida is the Japanese pronunciation of 2 different Sanskrit words. One of them is Amitabha, which means immeasurable light, not measurable. So it's immeasurable light is the quality, is the kind of meaning of Amida Buddha. So light is the middle of our tradition. Right? The idea of a light that spreads, a light of wisdom. The idea that there is wisdom in the world, right? Despite the pain, despite the ignorance we see and the anger and the road rage and nasty comments on the internet, right? All those are real. But in the Jodo Shinshu tradition and in Buddhism, we are hopeful. There is wisdom. There is clarity. We all have access to this clarity. So Amida was very important. It was very important for the founder of the tradition, Shinran Shonin. And he talks about light all the time in the tradition. In the Wasan, so as I read at the beginning, this was number 2 of 6. It's about light. But all 6 of them, he talks about light. He refers to Amida, describing Amida in terms of light. We see this also in, we didn't recite it today, but the Jusege. Well, it was also in Sanbutsuge, actually. If you open up Sanbutsuge and flip back through it after service, light shows up a couple times in there. And we often chant Jusege. That's kind of the greatest hit for chanting. And one of the lines reads like this. This is on page 95 in the Shin Service book, 95. This is Amida talking. My wondrous power, by its great light, brightens the countless lands throughout, removes the darkness of the 3 defilements, and delivers all from suffering and pain. So a reminder, the 3 defilements. Right? In Buddhism, they're sometimes called the 3 poisons. And IBS, the Institute of Buddhist Studies, they like to summarize them as gas, greed, anger, and stupidity. Right? So we see clear examples of that in the world, greed, anger, and stupidity. We see it in ourselves if we're being honest, and we definitely see it in the news. My wondrous power, by its great light, brightens the countless lands, removes the darkness of the 3 defilements, and delivers all from suffering and pain. We believe there is wisdom, and that wisdom is available to all of us. And that is a central teaching of Jodo Shinshu. So look out for it. Just look out for it as we're doing the liturgy this week, next week, the week after. Look out for how much imagery of light there is in this tradition. I briefly trained at a monastery in Taiwan, and there were some American college students who'd never really done meditation before, and they started teaching some traditional Chinese Pure Land meditation. So about Amida. And the first one you do is imagine the sun. It's like close your eyes and just imagine the sun, round like a drum, and the horizon, illuminating and warming everything. And that's it. That's like the meditation. You do that for a long time, right? Imagining the sun. Can you imagine the sun? In this day, today, rain and darkness. I'm glad it was really rainy today. It helps my talk. I also really like the rain, but it's not easy on everybody, right? I know that, right? I suffer days of darkness in my spirit from the darkness outside. So light is wisdom. So what does this mean for us? How can we reflect on these images? How can we reflect on light? As Buddhists, what does it mean? So first we can think about Amida. Amida, the central figure in Jodo Shinshu. But what is Amida? What is Amida to you, right? Especially if you're just new today, Amida is what you just told me, right? Or maybe you read elsewhere. But for people who've been coming here, some of you for your whole lives, right? What does Amida mean to you? You know, Shinran lived at a time when everybody took for granted that Amida was a real human-shaped being filled with compassion, like a parent. But we live in the 21st century, and so our feelings about things like that, right, supernatural beings might be different. So I believe there's probably a lot of diversity in here about how folks think about what Amida is. One way that it's often talked about in contemporary Jodo Shinshu is Amida is a symbol of the wisdom of reality. Our everyday life is trying to teach us. Every day, reality is trying to teach us. And often we miss it because we've got our habits, we've got our desires, our likes and our dislikes, and we're caught in a world that we're operating under habits. But sometimes we're reminded, something will remind us, no, this is how it is. We can be good to each other. There is compassion in the world. There is warmth. There is humanity. So one way to think about Amida is true reality calling to us, whispering to us, reminding us about compassion that is a fundamental part of our being as human beings. It's covered by our three defilements of greed, anger, and stupidity, and our habits, but it is there. It's how things really are. And that's a deep teaching in this tradition. So I just invite everybody here, longtime folks at the temple, ask yourself, what does Amida mean to you? Who are they? What are they? What's the Nembutsu mean to you? And it's not just one answer. Today, it's one thing. Right? Tomorrow might be something else. In moments of struggle, it might be one thing. In moments of joy, it might be something else. The meaning. So I'll leave you with that. That's one. Think about Amida. What does Amida mean? Okay. Number two, let's talk about light a little bit. I am not a physicist, but I'm going to just wander into physics briefly. If we have any physicists here, you can set me straight. I'm a scholar of Buddhism. And one of the things I've researched is the ways in which Buddhists use science and scientific images and ideas to talk about Buddhism, particularly in the last 100 years. Right? As science has become kind of the dominant language of truth, how do Buddhists talk about their tradition, sometimes using science and things like that? And so I write about people who do things like I'm about to do. Okay, so I'm going to do the thing. So as we think about light, right? What is light? Right? Light. Photons, We can also think about it broadly as energy, right? Energy in the electromagnetic spectrum. We can think about cosmic rays, right? We are all being bombarded, right? Cosmic rays are flowing through us as we speak, right? Rays from the sun and rays from elsewhere, particles of energy are flowing through us, right? They're, even as we speak, we are being pierced by this cosmic light. Cool, pretty cool, right? We can also talk about what we are and what our reality is. We don't talk about it too much in our temple, but one of the big teachings in Mahayana Buddhism is emptiness, right? That everything is impermanent and is dependent on other things. I only exist because of other things, right? I'm only here because you're here to listen to the talk. I'm only here because this temple was here. I'm only here because gravity is just right, right? If we cranked up gravity a bit, I would not be here anymore, right? So I depend on all these things. So one way to think about that in terms of physics is energy, right? We're all energy in a sense, right? Particles, all the matter that make up our bodies are not physical things. They're vibrations in energy, right? Quantum physics tells us this. I'm not getting too woo-woo, I don't think. Like this is just because it's kind of an accepted way of thinking about matter, is that matter is energy. Einstein taught us this. So as we think about that, we in a sense are made of light, and we're also living in a universe of light. We are dependent on others for our existence, right? We only exist because of the people around us, the people who came before us. The parents, our schooling, our teachers. We only exist because of the people around us. So we can reflect on that, right? We can reflect on what is this world we live in? Is it a world of little hard atoms? I'm me, I'm in my car, I'm independent, I don't depend on anybody else. That's certainly the story we like to tell ourselves and our culture tells us, but that's not the story. And that's certainly not the story of Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha's story is a light of compassion that is everywhere. Can we feel it? I don't know. Can we remember it? It's hard. One way we remember it at our temple is through liturgy, through chanting together. Right? We join our voices. We match each other's pace and each other's pitch. We engage in liturgy in this temple every week. And sometimes we chant different things. Sometimes we chant things with a lot more melody. But in all of them, we see images of light. In all of them, we as a community are gathering together and being unified in a thing. Right? We're giving up our individuality, or we're merging our individuality into harmony. So we're all still individuals, and we create a whole together. And then we sing a song. We sing a gatha. So Donna's going to play, and we're all going to sing a gatha at the end of the service, and we do the same thing again. We join together in liturgy. There was a late American Zen master. I don't think he came up with this idea, but I really like the phrase. He said, liturgy is the practice of making visible the invisible. It's a practice of making visible the invisible. So we come today together as a group. If this is your first time, if this is your 50th time, your 1,000th time, and we come together and then we make something that is invisible visible. We make our aspiration. We make our hope that humans are not irretrievably broken. Our hope that there is compassion. Our hope that all of us can do a little better. And that everybody outside who we disagree with will also do a little bit better. So we chant liturgy about light, and we make something that is invisible visible. So please join me in Gasho. The light of wisdom exceeds all measures, and every finite living being. receives this illumination that is like the dawn. So take refuge in Amida, the true and real light. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida.